Welcome back to the Christian Authors with Marilyn Jeanne Designs podcast. I'm your host, Gina Stockdahl. I am a wife, homeschooling mom of two, business owner, and five-time best-selling author. I am here to remind you that your story matters, your voice matters, and if God called you to write, no enemy in hell can silence your pen. Today's guest is going to shake you, but in the best way possible. She's a powerhouse author, the founder of In the Name Publishing, and the visionary behind Power Magazine. She writes faith-based psychological thrillers, children's books, and she's also building platforms for other Christian creatives to rise up and release redemptive stories into the world. Please help me welcome to the show, Jessica Hieb.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Of course. For those who do not know you yet, can you share just a little bit about your background and what drew you into writing?
Yeah, so I've kind of written stories my whole life. Even, being, 6, 7 years old, learning how to write, I would always write stories like based off Veggie Tales or like something like that. And would always tell stories to my younger cousins, and my sister and I had bunk beds, and we would I'm going to say co-write these stories on one slip of paper. When we were in timeout, we would slide it up and down on like a piece of yarn over the bunk bed. So it kind of is just something that I've always done. And it really kind of exploded when I came back to my faith. I grew up reading Stephen King and Dean Koontz and James Patterson and a lot of like really heavy writers, right? Like dark and twisty stuff. And I felt when I came back to faith, I felt God really put that verse on my in my mind, guard your heart. And a big part of that was like, okay, what am I letting in when I'm reading some Stephen King books? Like, what am I letting in? So then trying to find books that really kind of met that need that I had, which is dark and twisty, right? Like the world is a dark and twisty place. And a lot of what I could find was just, and it's not bad, but it was kind of hallmarky, right? It's a lot of really kind of happy stories, or everything kind of goes right, or the big issue that they have is like, oh, I smoked a cigarette at prom, and I'm like, my golly, if that was the worst I'd done. Which again, they're great stories, they're incredible authors, but they didn't really feel like true to what my life has been. So when that happened, it was just like, well, I guess I'm going to write the books that I want to read. And that's kind of how it really kicked off.
That makes a lot of sense. I love that you brought that up because Stephen King and James Patterson are two of my favorite authors, and I own almost all the Stephen King books, almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is definitely my genre, which made me really excited to interview you today.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
good.
well, now that you're all grown up, you're the founder of In the Name Publishing and Power Magazine. What
Yeah.
was the God-given vision behind starting both of those things?
Um, it honestly kind of had to do with my first publishing experience. So my first novel was called Breaking Seven. And I published that with a faith-based Christian publishing company. And it was honestly one of the worst experiences of my life. Like it was, I didn't get the cover I wanted. I didn't get support in like the editing, like, your team does editing as well. So
Right.
that there's like a difference between like a solid book editing and like proofreading,
Oh
a
yeah.
paper. And what I got was that kind of proofread. And a lot of that was put on me. So I paid, I think, over like $7,000 out of pocket to go through this process. And the book that I got, like the sizing was wrong for industry standards. The cover was not what I wanted. So I was really like so disappointing to me to go through all, and when you're writing a book, that's your baby, like you're pouring yourself into that. So to go through all of that and be handed something that was not anywhere close to what I expected, um, was really disappointing. So I was like, okay, I'm done. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to do this anymore. This whole writing gig is not for me. I was working in project management. I'm like, I'm good at this. I'll just stick to this. And I kid you not, it was like so clear. God was like, do it better. And I was like, nope. Like I'm not a business minded person. I'm not somebody that thinks in terms of like helping, customers, or, making books. Like I had never done that. And my one, intro to that was so bad. And I was like, no, I'm done. writing, God. I'm done writing. It was a good try. It was a fun thing to do, but let's just be done. And I kid you not, within a couple of weeks, it was like I had this stanza in my mind, and it was like it was haunting me, like over and over and over again. This phrase, this, paragraph is on repeat in my brain. And I was like, fine, I'm just gonna write it down. And I sat down to write and ended up writing like 20 pages, like word pages, 20 word pages.
Oh, wow.
And oh, it was insane. It was like 4 hours of just like intense writing. And then I went back through and I read what I had written, and I was like, oh no, it's kind of good. Like, oh no.
Darn it.
Like, like it's not supposed to be good. And I was like, okay, this one can be just for me. And that, again, God was just like, that's not for you. I didn't make that for you. And I said, well, I don't want to go through that again. I don't have the funds to do it. I don't have like the mental fortitude to do it. And again, he just said, do it better. So it was like there was no planning involved in any of it, which is terrifying to say. But released, They Call Me Beauty, I think in 2022. And it was the first novel that we did through my publishing company, and we learned how to publish books through that process. So yeah, it was a really a really fun experience.
That sounds strangely familiar. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. And let's talk about your book though. Like They Call Me
yeah,
Beauty. You wrote
yeah,
it back in 2022, you said.
yeah,
What inspired you outside of, like, obviously you said it was in your brain and he wouldn't let it go. We all know how
yeah,
that is. But what
yeah.
inspired like the book itself?
Yeah, so kind of a blend of things. So the main thing, really, I think, was my grandmother. So
Okay.
my grandmother was diagnosed bipolar with paranoid schizophrenic tendencies. So she was a woman that like loved Jesus, like she did. She was always talking to people about Jesus. I have her like an old Bible of hers and like everything she wrote in in the margins, all of that. But then there were these times when it was like she wasn't there, like she wasn't in control, she wasn't there. And it was such a different uh, societal standard for mental health when she was growing up, right? Versus like what we have now.
Mhm.
So we heard stories of her, getting the ice baths, getting electroshock therapy, like
Wow.
stuff like that, that is really heavy. And it just was in my mind for a long time, like what else is going on there? Like, what is it that we can't see or we can't know? And I have struggled with depression my whole life, and I had suicidal thoughts, and I had like these anxieties and these really heavy things. That when I look back on it, it's like, what voices was I listening to, and what were they telling me that made me believe that I didn't want to live anymore? And kind of that experience with my grandmother, and because that was one thing people would say about her was, oh, she was beautiful. Oh, she was such a beautiful woman. And it's like, okay, sure, yeah, she was absolutely stunning, but she's more than that title. So that's kind of how They Call Me Beauty came to be. Yeah,
So the
just a
book
little.
kind of seems like from that description, it seems like it takes like a deep dive into like identity and voices that all
Yeah,
kind of go like at war. Like,
yeah, yeah,
okay, why
yep, absolutely.
why would you think that like that story needs to be told now?
Well, I think we're in a time when identity is I mean, so in question, right? Like in every way, shape, and form. We've got people who are identifying as cats. We've got, grown people who are saying that they're children. And it's like those are the obvious pieces where it's like identity is in question. But every single person in the world has an opinion of who we are. And because of social media, every single person in the world has an opportunity to tell us who they think we are. And
Mhm.
if we're basing our identities off of those things, if I base who I am on what, Johnny Smith says about me on the internet, if I let that impact me, then I'm living in a lie. And the Bible is so clear about our identity, right? Like we are the children of God. We are loved. We are, covered by grace. Like the Bible is so clear and tells us how to find our identity. And yet we are looking to the world to tell us who we are. And that's really sad to me. And it's again, I lived it, I experienced it, and it like coming out on the other side of that, we're sure I still struggle with it a lot. I think we all do, but coming on the other side, it's like Now when that voice says to me that I'm too fat to be loved, or I'm too this, or too that, it's like I can counter that and say, like my value isn't in my weight, my value isn't in how I look, my value is in the fact that I'm a daughter of the king. Like I am covered by him. So
Right.
yeah,
I agree. And I think especially as women specifically,
yeah,
we really struggle with that. And
yeah, absolutely.
if someone were to read your book, what would you hope that most readers would walk away with once they're done reading it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think to me the most important thing is being able to say like, oh yeah, I heard that voice too.
Mhm.
Right? Like being able to identify the voices that are speaking to us, they give it a name. Give like, and Beauty does that in her book, right? So it's like or in the book, the demons that follow her, they're kind of based on her emotions, and they attack, or they portray themselves as certain emotions. So like anger is Annie. So Beauty will talk to Annie, and she knows Annie's voice. She knows when Annie is in control, and she's able to kind of put that face on that thought, right? So for me, it's kind of the same thing. And when I'm, out doing chores or washing the dishes and I catch my reflection or something, and that little voice says, oh, well, this is like this, or if, somebody is said something that causes offense to rise up in me, then I am able to say, oh, that's Oscar. Like, I got to pray that away because that's not true. That's not the truth. That is something within me that is reacting and being able to name. So for anybody that reads it, I hope that they're able to say, yeah, like I've heard that voice too. And one, know that they're not alone, but two, know that they don't have to accept that. Like you don't have to listen to it. So
Right. Well,
yeah.
and yeah, no, they're definitely not alone. Especially with myself specifically, because I can't speak for others, but like getting
Yeah.
older and yeah, gaining weight and
Yeah.
because I don't have as much time to put into myself in that aspect right now and things like that. And it's taken a long time after having two kids and being married for almost 10 years and things to realize that, yeah, my identity is not in what I look
Yeah.
like. It's
Yeah.
I'm my savior, but it's
Yeah.
hard. And then
It
we
is hard.
struggle because I think, like you said, with social media specifically, and I go
Mhm.
back to that a lot, where people give the highlights of the good things and they never,
Yes.
I shouldn't say never, rarely discuss
Yeah.
the bad. So therefore,
Yeah.
a lot of us feel alone, or we start to feel
Yes.
ashamed because, oh, she gets all that stuff done. Why am I not getting that stuff done? When in
Yeah.
reality, is she really? Or is she just saying that
Yeah.
she?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's really good to know that or I can't speak for men. So like with women specifically, that no, like you're not meant to do it all.
Yeah.
You look the way you're supposed to because that's how God made you. And I think it's
Yeah.
good to have a fun book to kind of remind
Yeah.
us of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
excited to dive into it.
Yeah.
You know,
Excited to hear your thoughts.
can you, so you mentioned earlier that you started it by a 4 hour writing block, which I'm jealous of
Yeah.
because as a mom of two young boys, like you've been with me with my kids on calls and things.
Yeah.
There is no 4 hour uninterrupted time in writing block
Yeah.
in this house. But do you have like a writing process now or a writing process that you use when you did that? Like what does your day to day kind of look like? No, I don't need.
No,
Okay.
I should. I do much better when I do my writing block right after my Bible block. So
Ooh,
it's like I do my worship time, I do my Bible time, and then before any TV comes on, before anything else happens, I spend however much time before I have to get a task done. I sit down and write. Now, saying that, I haven't done it in like 3 days. So, no, I am definitely seat of my pants. If you saw the notes in my phone, it is outrageous because they always come up at the worst time where it's like 3 a.m. and suddenly I have this,
yeah.
this scene that has to go in. So it's in my phone or like in the shower, and I'm like, oh gosh, I got to do this. So no, I'm not a very consistent writer. I tend to walk away for long blocks. Like the novel I'm working on now is called The Strangest Place, and I like literally haven't touched it in 6 months up until about 2 weeks ago when God was like, let's go girl, like you're doing all these things but do what I told you.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
and see, I struggle with that too. I am definitely like you that, and I think it's how ADHD can also kind of come into play,
Yeah.
right? I cannot sit here and be like, well, I'm going to write from 3 to 5 on a Monday because
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be inspired at that point or
Yeah.
whatever. But like you had mentioned, that it comes to mine always seem to come when I'm driving because then I can't even write them down,
Yes, that too.
right? And so I always have to tell my oldest son because his memory is impeccable. Like, remind
Yeah.
me when I get home to write XYZ down before I
Yeah.
forget it. But so I can relate to that too. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of other women also struggle with their like doubt in writing.
Yeah.
Who will care what I write? Do I have
Yeah.
time? Do I have the resources?
Yeah.
Do you ever face like moments of like, who am I to write this?
Oh, absolutely.
How did you push through that moment?
So I think I had to think of it less like in volume and more in impact, right? So for me, if one person read my book and it changed their life in a positive way, then that's enough. That's worth everything. It doesn't have to be on the New York Times best-selling list. It doesn't have to sell, of course, I would love for it to sell millions of copies so I could just write all day long and play with my animals. That would be wonderful. But
Right.
it doesn't have to be that. Like we tend, I think, to what's the word, like grant, what's the word, we want things to be grand, we want things to be big scale, we want to be the 12 disciples. We hear a lot about the 12 disciples, but what about the people in the background that were keeping things going? Like their part in the story was just as important. If it was handing out food so that disciples could move on so Jesus could go into the next place, that is as important as you know I almost said walking on water, but honestly, it is as important as walking on water because it gets us there. So if you can change or impact one life, isn't that enough? Like maybe that's the one life that God put you on this earth to change and to impact. So isn't that enough? And I think once I started thinking about it from God's perspective, from the kingdom perspective, rather than the earthly perspective, it kind of helped to diminish that because God's going to do what he's going to do with my stories. No
True.
matter what I do, he's going to do what he does. So what comes of it after it's out in the world, that's none of my business. Like he's going to take care of that. So
I think we should make that into like a poster of some sort, or like like once the book's out there, that's none of my business. I don't know.
yeah, TM, I
Yeah.
need to trademark that.
Um, so I want to circle back around a little because you talked about how identity is kind of a pretty core theme in your writing.
Yeah.
How has your own walk with Christ shaped your specific identity and your redemption overall?
Yeah. So I grew up in a Christian home. Um, my parents were very young. So my mom was, I think, 15 when she got pregnant, 16 when she had my older sister, and my dad was 17, 18 in that time frame. They've been married now for 39 years.
I think that's
Um, but yeah, oh, it's insane. But they were really young parents. My mom's, with her mom was my grandmother who was bipolar with paranoid schizophrenia, so very hard upbringing.
okay.
My dad's upbringing was kind of the exact opposite. There was no God in their home. There was very worldly things, and he had siblings that were involved in untoward things. And when they got married, it was like it literally by the grace of God that they found each other and that they fought through everything that they have gone through. But it was they were very young in their faith, and with us kids, it was kind of with me and my older sister, very kind of legalistic. So I am a very sensitive person. I've always been emotional, have always been sensitive, and always kind of rebelled against this idea. And I think a lot of it was that I thought I was failing. Like, well, God's not going to take me anyways, so I'm going to just go do whatever the heck I want. And I mean, as young as 13, was smoking cigarettes and drinking beers and that followed me for a long time. And then finally in my early 20s, it was like God like smacked me in the face, like, okay,
Enough's
we're
enough.
done with it. Like that's enough. And really pulled me back into him. And what I didn't realize is that that was when the true fight for identity started.
Mm.
Like when I came back to God, and I feel like people don't talk about this enough. When I came back to God, it was an absolute battle. I mean, because you've got these old strongholds where it's like, well, I had a bad day, I'm just going to go drink a whole bottle of wine, right? Like these old strongholds that you run back to, and in your mind it's like, oh, it'll be okay, it's fine, just have that little bottle of wine. And then
Right.
you drink the whole bottle of wine, and the next day you're like spiraling in shame. So it really was for me like, my sister would call it like my stormy place. She's like, are you in the stormy place? Like, because
Cute.
it really was
Oh, yeah.
like, it was like heavy. So it was honestly probably, I want to say like 8 or 9 years of being in those kind of spirals where I would do really, really, really well, and then I would fall, and I would just condemn myself, and then would finally forgive myself, let God forgive me, and then I would go back into it. And then it was like suddenly it was like fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer times. So it was like I was in my Bible more and was um, mentally preparing myself, right? Like I was in the word, I was protected by the words. And when those spirals would kind of start to come, I was able to say, wait a second, like this isn't what God has for me. He has something different. So it was a really long time. And again, I don't feel like the church talks about that enough. It's like, oh, you're saved. Like everything is good from here. And it's like, no, like what's wrong with me that it's not good, you know? And that's kind of where that big part of identity is, because I thought everybody else was getting saved, and they stopped sleeping around, and they stopped doing drugs, and they stopped drinking all the time, and yet here I am, and I'm still kind of doing these things, and I'm like, well, why am I not good enough to be? So anyway, sorry, that was kind of a long drawn out, but
Oh,
it really,
okay.
years of redemption. And now I'm, get tempted sometimes to go back and be like, oh, I could just do this or do that. And God's like, do you want that? And I'm like, no, not really. But
Yeah.
it's like it would maybe feel good or, be fun in a moment, but I want to live for eternity, like not
Right.
for
Right.
so
Well, just know that you're not alone because I also grew up in a very legalistic household. And, you know, I don't want to say use the word broken, just for the lack of better term. Like my parents divorced when I was 19. And
mm,
so it's legalistic and, we've found the freedom since then, right, as
yeah,
a family. But,
yeah,
just know you're not alone in the sense of like, I was kind of always taught how you were, and now you're saved, so everything's gonna be great. Well, first of all,
yeah,
it's unbiblical because it
yes,
tells us
oh,
time and time again that as a Christian, there are going to be times that are stormy.
yes,
Um, but then, yeah, he's not a genie, so it's not going to just like we have to do the work, like the faith without
yes,
works is dead.
yeah,
So,
yep.
just I bring this up, A, so you know that you're not the only one that's struggled with that, but B, for the listeners that are also struggling with it, I think this is way more common than people like to let on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and same thing like with my parents, right? They raised my oldest sister and I kind of in that legalistic way. But now, like seeing how my two younger siblings are raised, we joke all the time, like those were not the same parents. Like we were not raised with the
And
same.
my
Yeah,
siblings are 8 and 9 years younger than me. Now,
yeah,
they
yeah,
were 10 and 11
yeah,
when my parents split. And so, yeah, no, their childhood was clearly different than mine because I was an
yeah,
adult by that point. But I
yeah,
joke with my mom about that all the time. I'm like, now I
yeah,
understand, mom, you were a single mom with them for
yeah,
most of the time, but that they were not raised in the same household as I was.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what?
It's so different. It is so different because yeah, my siblings are seven. My brother is seven, and then my youngest sister is 14
Mm,
years younger than me.
oh,
So
wow.
it's the same thing where we're like, she's so well adjusted, like she's so put together compared to what my oldest sister and I are. And it's just like, oh, good job, mom and dad. Good job. You got it together.
We take the brunt of it because we're the trial and error kids.
Yeah, yeah, basically. Yep. Yep. And I have middle child syndrome on top of that. And I'm like, cool, cool, cool. Let's just give me all of the things. That's awesome.
I cannot relate to that. I'm the oldest.
The oldest
Uh,
child.
but I do want to shift gears just a little because I want to talk about publishing as a whole. What
Yeah.
was your publishing? So I know this was your first novel with your company. So
Yeah.
essentially that would be considered self-publishing, correct? Um,
Um,
but I guess you had, you know, your team help you. But what was your
yeah,
overall like publishing journey look like when you were getting that out into the world?
getting beauty out specifically.
Yes.
Um, a lot of really late nights, a lot of panicking because KDP doesn't like certain sized things and everything has to be right to the edge and down to
Mhm.
the so a lot of panicking. It was, I was kind of disillusioned from my first publishing experience because they didn't do much editing. I thought I was like a fantastic writer. I was like, I am superb. Like,
Yeah.
I've got all of this down. And then my second novel, Beauty, which was edited by a true editor and it was line editing. I got that thing back and it was like red line all over it. And I was just like, I am the worst. Like, it's,
Know the feeling.
yeah, such a shift. And it's so funny because when I'm talking to people who are, want to publish it with us or get our editing services, I'm like, okay, mentally prepare yourself. Like, I'm going to send you a picture. This is a picture from my novel. Like, I want you to know why it's like this,
Right.
because it is really heavy. So that was a big struggle, I think, at first. But there were kind of two parts in that I kind of had to come to terms with. One is I had to be willing to push back a little bit on things where, if she made a change, I had to say, like, okay, so grammatically it might be correct, but from the storyline, it doesn't meet the flow that I want. So I kind of had to learn to find my voice in that, which is really hard, right? Like she's a talented editor. And then two was having to kind of let go of some pride because there were moments where I would be like, well, it's fine the way it is. And I would be like, okay, well, maybe it is fine, but she really has made it better. Like, do I want just fine or do I want it to be excellent? So that was definitely a struggle. But God really blessed me with beauty because one of my best friends is a designer and she did the beauty cover. And then she would be like, hey, so I was thinking about the book and I was reading through it and I want to do this for the back. I want to add this to it. And I was like, okay, do your thing. Like,
Right.
was very blessed in the people that I had alongside me for that project because they were as invested as I was. Otherwise, I think it was kind of just figuring out things. Hi, kitten. Oops, sorry.
That's okay. You guys can't see it, but Minerva has decided to come sit on my lap and be in this screenshot, and that's okay. She'll pop in and out. Don't worry. She's our
And
quality.
I can't not say hi to a cat.
Oh,
It's impossible. But yeah, the rest of it was just figuring out kind of all of those kind of back end pieces to keep it up to date with like industry standards. Like, so a lot of researching, how to make sure that it fit with and looks like a professional book. But once you kind of go through that, it's a lot and it's time consuming, but it wasn't all that hard. So yeah,
worth
pretty good process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's worth it, because I had a similar experience. Obviously, that's what we kind of bonded over with my
Yeah.
first solo book. And now I'm in the process of writing my second one. And
Yeah.
it's more of a revision of the first.
Yes.
We'll come to that later. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, like Cheyenne's our editor on my team, and she's hurt my feelings a couple of times, but not
Yeah.
not because she meant to,
Yeah.
but because she, like, she's talented and she knows what she's doing. But
Yeah.
so I agree. You don't always have people in your corner, but when you do, it's
Yes.
those that actually care.
It's helpful. Yeah. And I would tell authors, like, get people in your corner, right? Like, they don't have to be editors, they don't have to be designers. But, like, for me, like, I had a friend that I would send him beauty, chapter by chapter as I was going. And he would say, oh, well, what about this? What about that?
Sure.
And talking about her kept her real to me. It kept her in the front of my mind. And I had to kind of learn things about her that I didn't consider. So if you might not have a best friend who's a designer or an editor, but have your best friend just talk to you about your book, and that's really going to help you like supercharge your development.
I can agree with that. I think one thing that I never really realized was a big thing was like the ARC readers or like the beta readers.
Yeah,
And those
yeah,
are huge because they
yeah,
do. They see things or they catch things
yeah,
that I wouldn't because I wrote it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even Cheyenne won't catch certain things for the mere fact of all of our brains process differently.
Yes. Yep.
So that was a hard lesson for myself was to learn like that was a necessary step.
Yeah. Oh, it's tough. It's so hard. And that's what I said. I tell everybody coming in, like mentally prepare yourself for the editing process because it's gonna make you feel like doo-doo.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Like,
But we're doing it for your own good.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
with that being said, if you could go back and give your younger author self, that 6 or 7 year old that was passing this sheet of paper down, one piece of advice about publishing, what would it be?
Don't get bullied into publishing the first time. Don't sign anything until you've researched and asked questions. That would honestly probably be the biggest thing. Well, no, I would say one, don't stop writing. Like, don't get distracted and stop writing. And then two is really don't get bullied into publishing. So, bullied is a harsh word, but you know how they are. You've kind of
Yeah,
experienced it where like, I just wanted to request the how to self-publish book or, packet. And
right.
suddenly they're calling you, telling you that they'd love to publish your book and never been through this before. So you're like, oh, okay. And then you're signing documents you don't understand and paying money you don't have. So yeah.
Yes, which is why you and I are now here because we want to
Which is why I'm
educate.
here. Yeah. I mean, God does God things, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
God knew. God knew. So who knows where I'd be if that didn't happen. But yeah.
With all of this, so your books get published.
Yeah.
The next thing that I hear the most, and I don't know about your authors, but mine is how do I market it? Because not everyone's a marketing expert, right?
Yes.
So marketing a book can be overwhelming, and this is where my bread and butter comes in because this is what I do. But
Yeah.
what strategies have you found that work best for you when it comes to this book?
Begging works really well. Um, so I struggle a lot with marketing because I think I kind of count myself out a little bit because like from the Christian audience, like psychological thrillers isn't really what you expect all that much, right? Like how do you have a faith-based psychological thriller? Like how does that happen? So I kind of count myself out from the Christian world because it's too dark and twisty, but then I count myself out from the secular world because it's too Christian-y. So I am very bad at marketing my books.
So as you were
uh,
saying this, I had a light bulb pop in. Because as you know, this is how God wires our brains. So
yes.
as you were saying that, like it's too dark and twisty, if I could talk, for the traditional
Yeah.
Christian book readers, but it's
Yeah.
not quite dark and twisty enough for like Stephen King realm over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Are you on TikTok at all?
I'm not on
Okay.
TikTok.
Well, the reason why this pops in my brain is because I am, and I will admit that when my kids go to sleep, I doom scroll a lot. So TikTok, if you guys are not familiar, breaks itself up into little sections and then adds word talk at there's book talk as we all know.
Yeah.
People who like to make flavored water, there's one called water talk. There's mom talk. Like it's all you find yourself in these little compartments of it all.
Okay.
There is one that I find myself in the most because I identify with it the most of
Yeah.
alternative Christian talk. And it is where all
Okay.
of us who are Christians, but cannot the emo scene has us in a chokehold, but we love Jesus.
Emo. Yes.
So if my advice to you is go there, go to them,
Okay.
because I feel like that would probably be the people that would pick up that book. Because the moment that I was reading your intake, I immediately wanted to go buy it.
Okay. Okay.
So
Interesting. I'll have to look at that.
I
This
find
is so I'm much better at marketing. My team is much better at marketing for our books than
right.
I am marketing my own. And it just a big part of it is like I need everybody to go and buy my book, but I also need you to not know who I am. I would like to be in the dark, like sitting in the shadows, watching you read my book and really enjoy it, but you don't know who I am. You don't like that's the big part of it. Like I want all the people to buy it, but I don't want anybody to know anything about me. So
Interesting. I
I
have
know.
brainstorm that because I'm the opposite. Because I was like, "Hi, I'm Gina. Have you read my books yet? Did you know?"
Yeah.
I'm like walking up to you, like holding them, you know.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I wish I could do that. I'm gonna try that. I'll try that method out. That'll be my new marketing. It'll
I,
be like, what is it? Have you met Ted? But instead, like, have you met Beauty?
yeah. I don't know how to explain myself. I am very much a black cat personality and overall, but when it comes to like marketing my business, I'm too golden retriever for my own liking.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
No, I worked really hard on this. Please look at it.
Yeah. Please look at this. I'm just like a penguin. I'm like waddling around with my little book underneath me.
Like passing them out. Or like the little otter like memes that hold.
Yeah, the little water. Yes.
But
Yeah.
one thing that we do have to also acknowledge is if you're going to be an author, like
Mhm.
just standalone, you don't have like a business outside of that, you have to look at branding yourself as one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially though for yourself. How do you kind of approach this? Because you have your publishing company, and obviously your publishing company publishes your books, right?
Yeah.
How do you somewhat approach this branding yourself as an author also when
Yeah.
you write across multiple genres? So you write the thrillers, but you also write children's books. And
Yeah.
you don't see a lot of people cross genres like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I do know multiple people who do. And so I guess my overall question is like, how do you approach branding yourself as an author when multiple genres are in play?
Yeah. So I think it's just authenticity. Like I never planned to write children's books. That was never in my like uh window. What do you call that? Purview? Is that the word I'm looking for? I'm an author. Don't worry about it.
Listen,
But it
I
was
know
never in, yeah, never in the line of sight, was never going to do children's book. And it wasn't until I had a nephew when he was born, he ended up being rushed to the NICU and spent, I mean, weeks, if not months, in the NICU undergoing like intense care.
oh,
And they were in North Idaho. There was absolutely nothing that I could do. My parents were there, but there was absolutely nothing that we could do except pray. Right? We could pray. I painted a series of paintings, kind of based on his name. This one actually behind me is part of that series, and I ended up just kind of writing him like a love letter, um, and that was Ferdinand the Fox. Ended up kind of being that first children's book that really was kind of like I just imagine like him. He's new to the world. He's kind of scared. He's like, he doesn't know what's going on. And it seems so dark, right? And then he like hears his mother's voice. And in that his mother is worshiping, right? His mother is praying. And I didn't want it to be super like heavy and religious, but there are definitely like undertones. There's like a scripture that's kind of hidden in one of the stanzas. Like, yeah, anyways, so that's kind of how that came to be. And then once we did that one, it was like, okay, that's kind of fun. And then Timothy the Turkey was next. But it was not something that I realized at the time it was happening. But this is where authenticity comes in. I've had kind of a dark past, a dark and twisty past. And when I write the psychological thrillers, when I'm in that place, I kind of get to explore and like over dramatize some of the things that I've experienced. And then I kind of get to heal those places. With the children's books, it's like I'm claiming back my childhood. Like I'm replacing some of those dark and twisty things with some of the joys that I kind of missed out on just because of things that happened in my life. And I get to kind of replace it. So I think that authenticity and the fact that I'm really like obvious about that, like with anybody. I'm like, yeah, like it's a weird thing to do both, but it has really been a healing process for me. So,
love that.
yeah,
Oh,
I may have gone down a rabbit hole.
oh, that's okay. I think writing heals a lot of authors, right? Especially
Yeah,
the ones that I
absolutely.
work with, you know.
Yeah,
Um, I do want to pivot just a little because you're talking about artwork, and I'm
yeah,
currently recording because, as you know, this podcast I do an interview with an author on Tuesdays, and then I drop a solo episode on Thursdays. And I'm currently recording a series that really takes deep dives into book covers. You know, what
yeah,
important, you know, what do you need to know about them, like so on and so forth. Both all the books I've seen of yours have stunning covers. And for those of you who aren't aware, I am the person that does the book covers in my business because my degree is in graphic design. But
yeah.
how important do you think that covers are for authors? And the reason I ask this is so many Facebook groups, so many Facebook groups that constantly are asking, what can I do to upgrade this cover, which is a totally fine
Yeah,
question. Always ask for feedback, but
yeah,
then people get mad when they don't love it off the bat. And so I want to talk
yeah,
about really why it's important that your cover design
yeah,
is
yeah.
also done, I guess.
Yeah, no, I like that. And it's funny because I actually just had this conversation with a client last week. And it is people don't judge a book by a cover. That's what everybody does, right? Like you're walking through a bookstore,
Mhm.
what catches your eye is going to be a cover that stands out and that pops to you. And that's I'm not allowed to go to airport bookstores anymore because I'll just be walking through and I'm just going to get M&Ms, but I happen to see this cover and I'm going to grab that. The market is so oversaturated.
Mm,
It is like the introduction of self-publishing and things like KDP is super awesome. Like it's
right.
so great for people who maybe don't have the resources to go, to pay a publisher to do the work for them, or they don't have the time to do the letters, or they've gotten denial letters from, traditional publishing companies. Because it used to be that you could only publish traditionally, right? So in that, things were limited. This market is so oversaturated. People are going to, they could love your blurb, they could see the blurb and they could love it, but if they flip that over and they see a cover that's disjointed, that doesn't come together and it's not clear, they're going to walk away.
Mhm.
um, and again, I just had this conversation. It's a hard conversation to have because people put their hearts into their cover and they want it to be something good and they get their mind around it. And it's like it can be good, but it could miss the mark as far as catching somebody's eyes. So it's so important to me. And I'll tell people less is more. You
Mhm.
do not want, if you don't have somebody like you or like my designers who can do it professionally and have the right tools and all the Adobe software to do it in the right way, don't do a complex cover. Do
Right.
something simple, do something elegant, because you're going to catch more eyes with something like that than if you have different pieces like popped together and mishmashed together. And it just doesn't necessarily stand out. So,
I agree. I had made a comment on one of the posts the other day because it she was giving a description of what the book was like and then showed the cover. And all I
mhm,
said was I would rework what the cover looked like simply because to me, I would not expect that book to be what it's about. Because
yeah,
book cover is kind of like a business card in the sense of like you kind of want to get at least a somewhat of a gist.
yeah.
Like if you have
Yeah.
never read Harry Potter in your entire life, and if you live under a rock and don't know what it is, but you look at the first cover of the first
Yeah.
book, which has him on a broom, you immediately know it's about a wizard.
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah.
you know, so it's
Exactly.
one of those things, yes. But I
Yeah.
wanted to really make sure we touched on that since you were in the same realm as me. I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
I'm making this
No, you're not crazy.
reason.
No. That's so I just painted, and in fact, that one I think is over here. So I just painted this. I shouldn't show you the rest of my house because it's a mess. This painting was a cover that I did for an author that came to me and said, "Hey, I really like your painting style. I want you to paint my cover." And I told him no at first. I was like,
Mm,
"Absolutely not," because I like I understand that there is so much value in having the right cover that if I paint your cover and it's not good enough, then like you're in a really awkward position.
right.
And it ended up again, grace of God, it ended up working out, but the cover is that critical that it was a paying job, and I said no way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
it's that.
it's true though, and that's the reason why I wanted to ask you. It's like I'm creating this series for a reason, guys, and I'm hoping that it's helpful because it's like an 8-part series at this point. But um, one thing I wanted to touch on before we go is you're creating multiple platforms for other authors, like through your work.
Yeah.
Why is it so important to you that Christian creatives are able to get their stories out?
Well, because I think God gives them to us, right? Like I think that like we always think of like the pastors and the preachers as being the ones that get to have the sermon, but it's true that they lead a flock, but all of our stories impact the next potential generation of Christians. And it just came to my mind, the woman at the well, right? When Jesus was talking to that woman at the well in Samaria, that everything about that situation was wrong. Like, based on the standards of the world, he should not have been talking to that woman as a Jew. He should not have been at that place midday. That's not when you got the water. They came in the morning or in the evening when the sun was down because it was hot. Like, everything about that scenario was wrong. And he talks to this woman, and after he talks to this woman, what does she do? She runs back and she tells everybody that story. That is one woman who potentially impacted her entire town, right? Like, she wasn't a preacher, she was a sinner, like very
Right.
obviously a sinner.
Mhm.
And he met her at that moment to give her that story to impact that community. And I think that that's what's so true of all of us authors. God gives us a story to impact our community. You're put in a place and a time to impact the people in that place and time. And I don't think there's anything more important than that, honestly. I mean, feed your kids and
Do the things. Okay, so sorry for like a little blurb in our audio, our Zoom froze. But my next question is, you had mentioned earlier that you're working on a book, like another novel, but are there any other projects, launches, things like that that we should be watching out for?
yeah, so I would say the biggest thing right now is our magazine, which will launch this December. So Power Magazine is honestly like, it was days after I filed the LLC, like this thought of the magazine came up. So it's been several years now. And then when I left my job early this spring, it was like God was like, okay, let's go in the magazine. And I was like, I don't have a team. I don't have a plan. I've never done a magazine. What are you talking about, God?
Right.
And then everything lined up, and now we have a magazine. So we just finished the content, the walkthrough on Friday, and we'll be meeting with our team to do kind of a final glance at it this week. And then, yeah, it's our Christmas themed magazine, Power Magazine. It's launching in December. It really is a place for all Christian creatives, right? And I think you're a lot like me. Like, I like to paint, I like to read, I love listening to worship music. You know, I want a place where I can kind of see all those things and be part of all those things and not feel like I have to go find the writers group and the painters group and the music group and the podcast group. Like, I want all of those things kind of in one place. So that's really our big one. And I don't know when this episode will air, but we do have my self plug pre-orders are live. Go pre-order or the magazine. They are we just
We will
and
certainly be putting a link, whether it's to the magazine or to your pre-orders. I'll have to look and see what date your stuff will air. But
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to be part of it. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where that all takes you guys, because you said it's gonna be quarterly, right? So like if they're
Yes.
interested in seeing
Yep.
being in a
Yep.
future issue, okay.
Yep. We'll do it quarterly. Our submissions are closed right now, but we'll open up submissions probably in January. I think my whole team needs to breathe for a minute now that we've got it done. But we have incredible authors, artists. I think at least one podcast, maybe two podcasts in there. So it really beautiful. So I'm excited for everybody to see it.
Well, Jessica, I want to thank you so much for sharing your heart and your story and your overall wisdom with us today, because while we may be in the same space, you have been doing it longer and we all do it differently.
Yeah.
Before I go into the rest of my conclusion, I really want to share with you guys that yes, we do pretty much the exact same thing, Jessica and I, but in the Christian space, there is no room for competition. It is only room for collaboration. And make sure that you're following along to see where Jessica and I are taking things, because we have quite a few things in the mix at the moment. I do want you guys to know that if you have a story on your heart, please reach out to Jessica or myself. We'd be more than happy to help you guys out. And if you know somebody that's needs to listen to this episode, please tag them or share the link with them. For you guys, it's time to stop doubting. It's time to start writing. It is time to walk boldly in the calling that God has placed on you. I always try to remember Philippians 1:6, which says, being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform until the day of Jesus Christ. So God
Yes.
didn't bring you this far to leave you here. If you are, again, wanting to start your author journey, Jessica and I are more than welcome, are willing to, I'm tripping over my words. You're talking about your brain earlier. My code, forget it. If you're wanting to start a journey, we do it imperfectly around here, okay? But I will put both Jessica and my contact info into the episode description because, again, we are not working as competitors, we're working together in certain things. So, also, please don't forget to subscribe so that way you never miss an episode, which is full of encouragement, kingdom wisdom, and practical tips for your writing journey. This is not the last you'll hear of Jessica, so make sure, again, you're following along. Jessica, it was such a joy to have you today. And to our listeners, I want you to keep writing, keep rising, and keep glorifying Him with your words.